February 14, 2019. Valentine's Day. While couples across Los Angeles were celebrating love, 68 federal agents were preparing to storm a property where love had been perverted into something monstrous. The man at the center of this operation was Marcus Valentino. 68 years old. Silver hair. Custom Italian suits. A smile that had charmed celebrities, politicians, and the parents of countless aspiring models. But here's what makes this case so disturbing: Marcus Valentino wasn't hiding in shadows. He was standing in spotlights. Think about that for a second. How many of you have seen stories about predators and thought, how did no one notice? Well, here's your answer: sometimes the monster is the one everyone's applauding. Valentino's company, Valentino International, had been operating for 24 years. 400 active models on their roster. Contracts with major fashion houses across 3 continents. Annual revenues estimated at $350 million. This wasn't some backroom operation. This was the industry. Special Agent Carmen Rodriguez first heard the name Marcus Valentino in October 2018. A photograph had been submitted to the FBI's human trafficking tip line, but this wasn't your typical anonymous dark web image. This came with a note. The note said, "I know where she is. I've known for months. I can't live with myself anymore. Check the mansion." The photograph showed a young woman with distinctive auburn hair and green eyes that seemed to be pleading directly through the camera lens. She was posed in front of a hand-painted mural, a custom piece featuring Italian countryside scenes with hidden faces woven into the landscape. Art forensics traced that mural to exactly one location on Earth, the Valentino estate, commissioned in 2007 from an artist who had died in 2016. Unmistakable. Undeniable. Damning. The woman's name was Sarah Mitchell. From Silverton, Oregon. Population, 9,000. She'd been a local beauty queen, won 3 regional competitions, had dreams so big they couldn't fit in a small town. When she disappeared for years earlier, her family had been told she'd made it, that she was working with an exclusive LA agency and traveling too much for regular contact. Her social media had even been updated periodically with professional photos and vague captions about incredible opportunities. Can you imagine? Can you imagine thinking your daughter is living her dream when the truth is she's living your worst nightmare? Drop a comment if you've ever had someone in your life just vanish into what seemed like success. Agent Rodriguez started pulling threads. And what she found made her blood run cold. 41 missing women over 17 years. All between ages 18 and 26 at the time of disappearance. All had some connection to Valentino International, either through direct contact with scouts, attendance at exclusive auditions, or participation in all-expenses-paid training programs in Los Angeles. 41 families who had filed missing person reports. 41 cases that had been closed as voluntary disappearances because the victims were adults and had seemingly chosen to cut contact. But Agent Rodriguez noticed something investigators before her had missed: the pattern. Every single one of these women came from small towns or fractured family situations. Every single one had been recruited at local events, county fairs, community theater, small modeling competitions. Every single one had been promised something that sounded too good to be true. And here's the most chilling part: for the first 3 to 4 months after they arrived in Los Angeles, they all sent enthusiastic messages home. "Mom, this is amazing. Dad, I'm learning so much. They really believe in me here." Those messages were the trap closing. Because by the time the messages stopped, families had been conditioned to believe their daughters were just busy, just focused, just living the dream they'd always talked about. When weeks became months, most families figured their daughters had simply outgrown their old lives. Only a handful of families pushed back. Only a handful hired private investigators. And every single one of those investigations hit the same wall: Marcus Valentino's reputation was unimpeachable. His connections were formidable. His lawyers were aggressive. One private investigator told Agent Rodriguez, "I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't prove it." And no one wanted to hear that the golden boy of the fashion industry might be dirty. How many times does that happen? How many times do we Ignore our instincts because someone has money, power, or the right connections? I want you to really think about that. At 2:47 a.m. on February 14, the assault began. Agent Rodriguez had spent 4 months planning this operation. 4 months coordinating with tactical teams, victim recovery specialists, medical personnel, and structural engineers. Because what they expected to find beneath that mansion required expertise from every corner of law enforcement. The informant who had sent that photograph had given them more than just an image. They'd provided architectural details, blueprints that shouldn't exist, showing spaces that had never been permitted, never been inspected, never been acknowledged. An entire underground complex. 3,400 square feet of hidden space beneath what was already one of the largest private residences in Los Angeles. The entry team breached the front door at exactly 2:53 a.m. Marcus Valentino was found in his office, not sleeping, not panicking. He was calmly feeding papers into an industrial shredder. When Agent Rodriguez entered that office, Valentino looked at her with genuine confusion. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" he asked. "I have dinner with the mayor next week. I have senators on speed dial. You're making a career-ending mistake. That's confidence. That's 24 years of getting away with it. That's the belief that power makes you untouchable." Agent Rodriguez's response? "Sir, you're under arrest for human trafficking, kidnapping, and about 200 other charges we're still counting. You have the right to remain silent. And I strongly suggest you use it." But finding Valentino was just the beginning. Finding the victims required solving a puzzle that had been designed to be unsolvable. The entrance to the underground complex was hidden behind a temperature-controlled wine cellar. Not just any wine cellar, we're talking bottles worth tens of thousands of dollars each. The kind of collection that gets featured in luxury magazines. The false wall activated through a biometric scanner disguised as a temperature control panel. Palm print and retinal scan. Valentino's paranoia had made him the only person who could access his prison. But the FBI had prepared for this. They had tools that could override any lock, any security system. Within 17 minutes, that wall slid open. Behind it, darkness. And a staircase descending 27 feet underground. I want you to imagine being one of those first agents down those stairs. Your heart pounding. Your weapon drawn. Not knowing if you're about to find victims, traps, or both. Motion sensors triggered lights as they descended. LED strips along the walls, creating this surreal, almost clinical atmosphere. Like a hospital corridor. Like a luxury hotel. Like anything except what it actually was, a prison. The first room they entered was a photography studio that looked like it belonged in a professional agency. Softbox lights. Multiple camera setups on tripods. Backdrops ranging from fashion editorial to scenarios I won't describe in detail, but that made veteran agents physically ill. And covering every wall, photographs. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Each photograph was tagged with a date, a reference number, and a first name. Just first names. Like these women had been stripped of even their full identities. The earliest date on any photograph? May 2002. 17 years of documented exploitation. Agent Rodriguez later told interviewers that she had to physically hold herself together in that room. She'd seen trafficking operations before. But never one this sophisticated. Never one this organized. Beyond the studio, they found the living quarters. A hallway lined with 14 doors. Each door had a number. Each door had a small window, reinforced glass, one-way viewing. Each door opened onto a 12 by 14 foot room containing a bed, a bathroom, a small television, and a woman who had almost forgotten what freedom felt like. 23 women. When those doors opened, when federal agents with FBI badges appeared, most of them didn't react with joy or relief. They reacted with terror. Because Marcus Valentino had spent years conditioning them to believe that rescue wasn't possible. That no one was looking for them. That any rescue attempt was just another test, another punishment waiting to happen. Jessica Chen, 19 years old from Seattle, had been there 7 months. When agents entered her room, she curled into a ball and whispered, "I'll do better. I promise I'll do better. Please don't put me in the box. The box. That's what they called the punishment cells, 3 by 6 foot. Concrete spaces with no light, no sound, no human contact. Amanda Foster, 36 years old from Dallas, had been in captivity for 13 years. 13 years. She was 23 when she was taken. She'd missed her entire 20s and early 30s in that underground prison. When rescue came, Amanda didn't believe it. She thought she was hallucinating. It took medical personnel 40 minutes to convince her that she wasn't dreaming, wasn't losing her mind, that this was real. How do you process that? How do you rewire a brain that's been systematically broken over 13 years? I genuinely want your thoughts on this. What kind of support do you think survivors need? The investigation that followed the raid uncovered a criminal enterprise so vast that it required 39 arrests over the following 18 months. Photographers who had taken those images. Web developers who had built encrypted platforms for distributing them. A plastic surgeon who had performed procedures on women who couldn't possibly consent. Security guards who had worked at the mansion and known exactly what was happening in the basement. And customers. Wealthy men across 4 continents who had paid enormous sums, we're talking 6 figures, for access to exclusive content. Featuring women they knew were being held against their will. The financial forensics revealed that Marcus Valentino had generated approximately $42 million in profit over 17 years. That's not revenue. That's pure profit after expenses. He'd invested it in real estate, art, political campaigns, and charitable foundations. He'd bought respectability. He'd bought protection. But he couldn't buy his way out of this. The trial began in March 2021, 2 years and 1 month after his arrest. The prosecution team consisted of 14 attorneys. They'd compiled 62,000 pages of evidence. They had testimony lined up from 17 survivors willing to face their abuser in open court. The defense strategy was predictable. Attack the investigation, attack the victims, claim this was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by ambitious prosecutors looking for headlines. It failed spectacularly. Sarah Mitchell took the stand on day 4 of the trial. The courtroom was completely silent as she walked to the witness box. You could hear people breathing. The prosecutor asked her a simple question: can you describe what your life was like before you met Marcus Valentino? Sarah was silent for 43 seconds. The judge didn't rush her. The prosecutor didn't prompt her. Everyone just waited. Finally, she spoke. I was a girl who believed in fairy tales. I thought if I was pretty enough, talented enough, if I worked hard enough, my dreams would come true. That's what everyone tells you, right? That anything is possible in America? She paused. Marcus Valentino taught me a different lesson. He taught me that some people see dreams as weaknesses to exploit. That some people see hope as a tool for control. He taught me that monsters don't hide in shadows, they stand in spotlights and smile for cameras while they destroy you behind closed doors. The gallery was openly weeping. Several jurors were crying. Even the judge had to take a moment to compose herself. Over the next 3 weeks, 17 survivors told their stories. The grooming process. The gradual isolation. The moment they realized they were trapped. The years of exploitation. The punishments for resistance. The psychological torture designed to break them. And the hope, that small, stubborn flame of hope that somehow survived even when everything else had been taken from them. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and 22 minutes. They found Marcus Valentino guilty on 214 counts. At sentencing, the judge delivered a statement that legal scholars still study: the defendant weaponized dreams. He identified vulnerability and exploited it with surgical precision. He built an empire on stolen futures and shattered identities. There is no punishment adequate for what he has done. But we can ensure he never does it again. 15 consecutive life sentences. No possibility of parole. Marcus Valentino showed no emotion as the sentence was read. He was transferred that same day to a maximum security federal penitentiary where he would spend the rest of his life in a cell that measured 8 feet by 10 feet. Smaller than the rooms where he'd kept his victims. That detail feels important somehow. What do you think? Is that justice? Is justice even possible in cases like this? The mansion was demolished in 2022. The survivors voted unanimously they didn't want it preserved, didn't want it to become some macabre tourist attraction. They wanted it erased. In its place, they built Haven Park. It opened in 2023 as a resource center for trafficking survivors, offering therapy, legal assistance, job training, and community support. At the center of the park stands a sculpture, a woman breaking through chains, her face lifted towards sunlight. The sculptor was a trafficking survivor from a different case who dedicated the work to everyone still fighting for freedom. 23 names are engraved on a curved granite wall, the women who survived. And beside them, 18 more names, women documented in Valentino's records who were never found. Likely sold to international trafficking networks. 41 names total. 41 reminders that statistics represent human beings. Sarah Mitchell returned to Oregon after 3 years of intensive therapy. Today, she runs a nonprofit called Red Flags that educates young people about predatory recruitment in entertainment industries. She's spoken to over 40,000 students. I heard her speak last year. She said something that stuck with me: they took 4 years of my life. But they didn't take my voice. And I'm going to use that voice until the day I die to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. Agent Carmen Rodriguez was promoted to lead a specialized division focusing on trafficking in creative industries. Since 2019, her unit has conducted 93 operations, resulting in 412 arrests and 207 survivors rescued. She visits Haven Park every February 14th. She told a journalist, "Every rescue matters. Every single one. That's what keeps me going." The fashion industry implemented reforms, mandatory background checks, certification programs, recruitment oversight. But here's the uncomfortable truth: systems only change when we refuse to look away. And that's where you come in. If you know someone pursuing modeling, acting, or any entertainment career, have a conversation about red flags. Agencies demanding money upfront. Opportunities requiring isolation from family. Promises too good to be true. The 23 women rescued from that mansion survived because someone finally refused to stay silent. Because an anonymous informant found courage. Because Agent Rodriguez trusted her instincts. You could be that person for someone in your life. If this story moved you, share this video. Not for me, for the person in your network who might need to see it. And please, comment below, what warning signs do you think people miss most often? What can we do as a community to protect vulnerable people? This conversation doesn't end here. It continues with you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being willing to look at uncomfortable truths. I'll see you in the next one. Stay aware. Stay safe. And never stop asking questions.